It was just 4 days ago that we got our first 1.21 trailer, and now we already have the first snapshot and beta, including a brand new feature, the Crafter. This is a complicated and cool redstone component for some, but if you look at a circuit like this and say it might as well be French for all you understand or care, you ultimately might not care about a big redstone component, but you'd be wrong not to, and as your resident non-redstoner, today I wanted to give you a basic guide as to what the redstone crafter does, and ultimately what you can use it for, even if you don't care about the redstone functionality. There are 4 really cool use cases for it, and today I'll be showing you each of those, as well as the basics of how it does work, as well as what this means for the rest of 1.21, because 4 days from trailer to the first feature is very good news, and I'm very excited, so let's dive right into it with hello, I'm BXToyCat. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the latest in 1.21 news, and also if you want to play with the crafter yourself, you'll need to download the latest beta, or preview indeed, or you can download a snapshot for Minecraft Java, and once you've downloaded that, you need to specifically enable the data pack with 1.21, or if you're playing on Bedrock, you need to make sure when starting a new world, you hit this 1.21 toggle right here. As you can see, they decided to keep the toggle separate from the villager trade rebalancing, meaning that might come sooner or later or not at all, but it seems as though 1.21 is the focus for now, which is why we have this, the crafter, and now I'm going to dive right back into the world and show you what's going on there. We're not going to talk about the really interesting late game implications for Minecraft becoming more like Factorio right now, and there are lots of interesting circuits people are going to work out if they're deep in the redstone world, but for most people, you want to start with the basics. How do you craft one? It's a crafting table, a dropper, 5 iron ingots, and 2 pieces of redstone, or if you are so inclined, you can see it in the regular crafting table just like this, and it's interesting about how you craft this, because if you wanted to, you could craft one in the crafter, because effectively, this is just a way of crafting any recipe in Minecraft. As you can see, I've got a cobblestone, and I've got myself a house fire prevention wand, which means I'll easily be able to make myself a lever, and if I was to make myself a lever, which I could do just like this, using a lever by the way, I would now be able to craft, because every time a redstone pulse comes through here, it will cause this to turn into that, meaning that if you want to make yourself some more sticks, all you need to do is send a redstone pulse through every single time, and it will perform 1 crafting recipe worth of crafts. This means that if you feed in 2 planks, you will get yourself a pressure plate out of it, just a single one, whereas if you put in 3 oak planks, you won't just get a single wooden slab out of it, you'll get 1 crafting recipe's worth, which is the equivalent of 6 separate slabs, and so this is something valuable to know. If you want to make this automatic, you can put a hopper next to it, but unlike most other blocks which have an inventory, you can't immediately move them from the hopper to the crafter. Instead, every time a redstone pulse comes through, it will power through a new set of stuff, which means, as you can see, if we flick the stick enough, then we'll get ourselves eventually trapdoors for some reason, and then eventually a bunch of buttons. Very, very interesting, if you ask me. Also, something else you can do, one of the more valuable functions, if you want to guarantee that everything that comes out will be a button instead of a trapdoor, you can disable the slots and it will look like so, and now there is only 1 item recipes that you can make, such as, for example, oak planks into oak buttons, or for example, iron ingots into iron nuggets. If you want to craft things and guarantee a certain size, you can do it like this. You can do it in really silly formats if you feel like to, but that is just the basics of this. Obviously, you can then chain that into massively complicated builds that we're not getting into today, because what else could it be useful for on the entry level of Minecraft? Well, first things first, it is another new block which has a face. This is the very happy dispenser, this is the very shocked dropper, this is the very stern looking observer, and I would say that if you look at the crafter, it kind of looks like a Ninja Turtle. He's got one of those fun eye masks on, if you ask me, or it looks like a bird that has some gaming glasses on. It's up to you how you want to interpret his look, but it is one of the more stylish looking blocks, and so these are the 4 faces of it. You might have seen them before. Use number 1 is you can use them solely as a manual kind of redstone piece. So you can use them and you can have them facing whichever way you think is relevant for the viewer, and then you can use it to tell people about a recipe you think they might not have considered. So if you've got an adventure map, maybe you could tell people, consider using slabs, and you can do that by placing them in a crafter like so. It makes it very clear what you're trying to communicate, because it literally shows the output they could expect to get, and if they have a redstone source with them, it could give them an easy access to that. You could also use this, to kind of remind yourself of the trickier recipes in the game. So for example, I always forget how to make pistons. There's just a lot involved in there, and so it takes like 4 stacks of cobblestone, then there's some planks in there, and so it's just a mess to make pistons in my opinion. This way I could store the ingredients somewhere, and every time I wanted a piston, I could just craft one using a button. That is actually a quality of life feature, in my opinion. If you have got a custom map where you're making your own silly recipes, like this could be TNT, but it explodes food source instead of something else, then you could have that recipe be clear in your mod or whatever else you're doing, or your add-on, or your map, just like this. What you could also also do is you can make fun puzzles. Look at this right here. This is a fun game for you watching right now. Can you guess which, recipe you can make using these iron ingots, just moving around one of the ingots? So moving just one of these iron ingots, can you tell me what recipe you can craft? I'll give you 3 seconds. It was a trick question. You can actually craft 2. It's either the iron leggings or it's the cauldron. I don't know why it's such a different recipe just based on where you place the iron, but welcome to Minecraft. It's a weird game. And one of my personal favorites, this one actually came in from Logan on Twitter, I always have issues crafting suspicious stew. It's just such an annoying item. You have to store 4 things around with you. What if you could just store them in a crafter and every time you needed the suspicious stew with the fun effect, you'd be able to get it just like so. That is actually a big quality of life improvement. So that is use case number 1. Use case number 2 is obviously it kind of works as a storage container that will be able to have more things in there than otherwise possible. And so if you wanted to, hypothetically, you could store more items than a hopper, but fewer items than a chest, and so 9 separate items, which is the perfect number of cooked foods that Minecraft has, in case you're curious. But there are all sorts of other places where 5 items might be too few, but 27 items might be too many, I guess is an argument. It's also an item which has slightly more blast resistance than you would probably expect, but rather than saying it has 3.5 blast resistance like the changelog does, let me instead show you what that looks like. I'll be honest, this is me finding out for the first time too. How much blast resistance is 3.5? The answer, oh, did I not set off the TNT correctly? I guess I did not. Can you not set off TNT like this? Okay, well, you know what, let's try that from a different angle. Let's place some redstone there. You know what am I doing wrong for this TNT? Do we just have to? Can you not place a button directly on it? This is me learning something for the first time. We'll place a crafting table in front of it. We'll place a button on the crafting table, and then we'll hope that causes some TNT to detonate. I don't think it did. Are TNT explosions turned off? Okay, TNT explosions were just turned off. This time, the dramatic thing might just happen. I heard a fuse trigger, but will it explode? I'll find out. There we go. Look at that. That is 3.5 blast resistance. As expected, it makes this perfect 3x3 tunnel, which you might find very cool. I like to use that in weird Minecraft maps. Maybe you want to use that too. I think it just looks kind of nice when you carve out the middle. If you want to, you can use the crafter for precisely that. And yeah, I'll admit, this next one is a bit of a stretch, but it is technically a use for it that doesn't involve complex redstone, because the crafter is a very interesting looking block. I quite like it as this border block you can see I'm using it as right here. I quite like it as a way to visually make some stuff, and I like this as a block that has some very intriguing looks. From the side it looks interesting, from the top it looks interesting, even from underneath it is a very, very intriguing block, and so if you deliberately want to play around with it, you could do so in this way. Interestingly, I haven't found a way to place this upside down, even if you really, really want to, but you can place it to the side to kind of get these as wall blocks. If you want to have an interesting looking Minecraft block, I think the crafter is a great way to do that, and that means it's also wonderful for silly block time. Silly use case 1 is having a giant wall covered in red grits, or indeed the wood, or indeed the bottom side of it. There are very interesting things you can do with it, but silly use case 2 would of course be replacing a biome with it. Some would say this has gone too far. I would say there is no such thing, but no matter what it is that you want from the crafter, it is a very interesting visual block, and so technically that is a 4th use. How can you make use of the crafter? Realistically, it's going to be used 90% by people doing very complex Factorio style things in Minecraft, as I put it in my short earlier today, people who want to take the Minecraft out of Minecraft, something I'm not dissing by the way, but that is going to be the biggest use for the crafter. However, the bigger question you might have if you don't care about the crafter is not what silly things can I do with it, because that's always my question, but instead, what does this mean for the rest of Minecraft 1.21, and I'm very glad you asked, by the way. Obviously, going from an announcement trailer to the first snapshot in 4 days is incredible news, but this doesn't mean that the crafter was fully developed and implemented in just 4 days. Instead, it was likely finished alongside the rest of the features in some small level at least by the time the trailer came out. In fact, weeks before the trailer came out, because they had to build that thing over the weeks before it, and that's something that always happens. Minecraft Live is not a perfectly live show. However, the interesting thing about this to me is that the crafter was finished this week, but the trial chambers and some of the other features were not. This makes me think that, usually we get one big snapshot to start off the season. It could be that this year they're going to slowly drip feed the features in. It's something that lots of games are famous for doing, but it actually works quite well for them. So will we see snapshot after snapshot filled with features rather than them having big snapshots, then weeks of just bug fixes, then weeks of snapshots? Because this week's snapshot does have bug fixes in it. It is worth saying. They fixed some horizontal end rod boxes, and they also brought in a new accessibility feature to hide the the yellow splash text. Some people are finding that controversial because, oh, is this just to help people who are afraid about, I don't know, anti-racism or whatever it is that people are saying? But I ultimately think that if people want to hide those splash texts, why not let them? I also think something that's important to say is that, yeah, this is just our first feature, but we will be getting many more over the snapshot season, and it is also worth saying that although this update is part of 1.2050, the actual final update, 1.21, is coming out in 2024. Confusingly enough, that means that this is a 1.21 beta inside of 1.20.50, but 1.20.40 is likely coming out next Tuesday, and so that might be confusing. There's a lot of exciting bug fixes in that update, by the way, a few features that you might care about. I'll let you know when it's actually out, but for now, just keep in mind that these are the big, hints on the next big update, but there are smaller and medium monthly updates still to come between now and then, including potentially that villager trade rebalancing. We won't talk about that too much until Mojang have anything to say though. What I will say is that I'm excited for 1.21. I can't wait to see more of these, and I also am curious what you thought about this video, kind of diving into the slightly more practical side of the crafter. I know that 95% of Minecraft players don't dive deep in the redstone, but maybe you still want to see a YouTube video that does, even if you never intend to do it yourself, or did you enjoy this because it's actually reflective of how you might be able to use this block, even if you can't do this thing that so many people have mentioned that they never engage with because they find it to be exhausting or hard. Do you think that that's something you'd like to see? Let me know for sure. Either way, I'm excited for the Trial Chambers, which is presumably coming next week, the week after. It's coming soon, and that is going to be my jam in terms of this update, so looking forward to it. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Subscribe if you're new around here to stay up to date with 1.21 and all the latest news, because I've got a big video about the secrets of what they announced in the trailer, kind of sneakily, and if you want to see that, make sure you stay subscribed because it'll be out tomorrow, maybe. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye!